if you can't calm down when I'm ready to go. Seems to take a little bit longer than it should these last few days. Just throwing it out there. Don't look at me like I'm crazy, Kike.
Looking at me.
I saw that look you were just giving me.
No, I thought you were looking at the wall.
Okay, so we have two people doing a science fair experiment. We talked a little bit about other people's. Grace, why don't you come on up here and sit next to me for now? That'd be great. Thanks. Thank you. So we have these two people doing a science fair experiment. We talked a little bit about other people who did them like when they were younger. We had the windmill, right? And we had baby food, right? Okay. And we talked about how like only one thing can change, right? If it's going to be an accurate experiment, you can only change one thing or one variable about whatever you're testing or monitoring, okay? So they want to estimate the rebound of a tennis ball that is changed if it's soaked in water overnight and then allowed to dry out. They wanted to get a random sample of tennis balls, but they realized such a sample was impossible. Instead, their PE teacher just gave them 20 used tennis balls. Okay, next page. Identify the treatment utilized in the experiment. So what were they doing to the tennis balls? Yeah. They soaked the tennis balls in water and then let them dry. For testing. I'm not sure why that was what they wanted to do, but that's what they decided to do. Who knows? Is the sample of the 20 tennis balls a random sample? Not really, right? Because all of the tennis balls are used, right? So we don't know if something might be different if it's a brand new tennis ball never been used versus one that's used, because all of them are used. So not quite. Okay, so now Fred, he's thinking things over, and he's like, well, 10 of the tennis balls we have are Wilson, and 10 are Dunlop. I guess that's how you say that. I don't play tennis. Is that how you say it? Dunlop. Okay. He thought they should let the 10 Wilson tennis balls be the ones soaked in water, and the other brand should be the ones that stayed dry. So I guess that's what they're going to do. They're going to compare how far they bounce back if they've had this special treatment done to them or if they've just been left alone. Did it explain that in the beginning?
Yeah.
But did it say that some of them are going to be left alone? Or did it just say they're all going to be soaked in water?
They probably have a control one.
Yeah, but they didn't talk about the control group, right?
I don't.
No? Okay. Is this an example of random sampling? Explain your thinking. Hayden?
No, we only test if one random tennis ball is better than the other.
Sure. Nope. It only tests one brand. So not only do we have only used tennis balls, now they just want to use one brand for the what's being done to it and one brand for not. You'd have to definitely mix match them, right? Because you don't know if how they're made is affecting it versus the water and drying treatment. Okay, so then Wilma comes up with this suggestion to group the Wilson Randomly choose 5. Do the same thing with the other brand. Randomly choose 5. Explain why this is a better way to sort them. Why is this a better scenario? Landon?
Because then both brands are getting soaked in water to be tested.
Yeah, both brands. Will be tested. I wonder how they randomly select them. Do you think they have to be like blindfolded so they can't like look at them? Because I mean, sometimes some tennis balls can look pretty beat up, and some can look fairly new. Do you think they blindfolded themselves when they picked them out? Maybe.
Throw them at them, whoever catches them.
I'm sorry.
Throw it at them, and whichever ones you catch, that's the one you get.
I mean, that might work too, right? Who knows? I mean, are Fred and Wilma friends? I don't know. Maybe they want to throw.
Maybe they were forced.
Both brands will be tested the same way. Okay. Turn the page. All right. So we had an experimental study. Now we're going to talk about observational studies. There's really no closure here with Wilma and Fred. We have no idea what happened there.
Oh,
Yeah, we're just going to move on from them.
thanks.
Yep. Observational study, right? You just observe something. You don't actually do anything. You just observe what's happening. An experiment through observation. Okay. So I need someone to read to me about Lucy. Let's have Shelby. Will you read to me about Lucy?
Lucy wrote an article online with the headline, "A recent study shows that among employed Americans, people who text frequently tend to have lower paying jobs than those who do not." Lucy immediately sent a text message to her friend Ethel. "OMG, CC, texting makes you have less money. Too bad for us."
Okay.
Cece?
How would that be Cece?
Why is this?
But like her friend's name was Ethel.
Oh, no, that's a very old fashioned
Well, Lucy and Ethel are so that's
the wrong number.
that's from a different kind of like Fred and Wilma, Lucy and Ethel. It's from an old timey TV show.
Oh yeah, I know that.
I Love Lucy. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Her friend's Ethel. They get into trouble together. It's really funny. Okay. Use this information to answer the question below. Why is this scenario not an experiment? So like, so an experiment is when you actually do something to test what effect it has. Why is this scenario, the study that they did, not an experiment?
It's like dinner.
They don't like experiment.
So they don't have people that don't text a lot. Maybe.
Well, I mean, did they do anything to people? Did they ask people to change their normal habits?
No, they didn't even test it.
They just said, hey, this is what we think, right? So that's why, because they didn't do anything to determine the results, which means that like they didn't test anything. They just observed, right? So no test. It's kind of a crazy statement though, right? People who text frequently tend to have lower paying jobs.
Maybe it's because they don't think that they work hard enough since they're always in the house.
Maybe.
Even though that's not the case.
That's true.
I mean, I would argue that people that make a lot of money have to be texting all the time to like keep making money.
Yeah.
Business things, maybe? Okay. Do the results of this study provide enough evidence that the cause for people having lower paying jobs is frequent texting?
There isn't.
Like that was their results.
Oh.
They showed that among employed Americans, that was their results. So, did they provide enough evidence?
They didn't provide
No, they didn't
any.
provide any.
No, I mean, there's not really any evidence provided. Not that we can tell, right? Now, I will tell you that you all probably text more than I do, right? And how much money do you guys bring in a year?
Of what?
Right? So if they're going to compare amount of texting, did they survey different groups of people and make that observation? Because I know I make more than you right now. Not for long. You'll all go on and make bajillions of dollars, and I'll still be here teaching about observational studies. Loving it, but still doing it, right? But can you really make, that's a pretty broad statement, right? Because you guys, I mean, you text a lot. I know you do. I'm kind of worried about you because you know what you look like when you text, right?
Sometimes I don't even look. I already know.
So you're usually looking down, right? And what's that affecting?
Our posture.
Your posture and your neck.
I have a bump on my neck.
I mean, you can get like, actually have like, so Mr. Kite, every once in a while, he gets what he calls his like texting neck, and because he like it like freezes on him, and he can't like turn his neck, and he knows it's because he's been like looking down at his phone too much. Like it happens.
I feel like you tog on like when you look down the back, it's like.
Yeah, it's not healthy, right?
So then it's like.
Okay. Not that we can tell. Also,
Probably just to scare me.
depends on age. Used for study. Younger people. Probably text more. I'm not going to say always, but probably.
Is there another bullet point for younger? Or comma, okay, no.
Comma. Yep. Right? And honestly, when you do start getting a job, you're not going to make a bajillion dollars like when you first start working, even out of college. You got to start somewhere, right? So even college people people out of college who I would argue also text more than me, they're still not likely to make more than me because they haven't been working for 20 years, right? You get experience. People pay you more for your experience and your expertise, right? That's right. I'm an expert. I said it. You guys okay today?
Yeah.
How can observational studies incorporate random sampling? So what could be different to this to prove that their research is valid?
They could have like in the part of the article where they give evidence.
Okay, maybe provide more evidence. Hayden?
Study more groups of people and study different jobs.
Yeah. Divide it down into groups. Like maybe they only ask like people who are 15 to 25, or maybe even not even that. That seems pretty big group. Maybe people right out of college, ask them how much they text and ask them how much they make, instead of comparing a 20-year-old to a 60-year-old. Right? Maybe. Do you want to use the other sharpener? You can go ahead.
Oh, no, it actually doesn't work.
Okay. Okay, so break it down. The smaller samples. Ooh, we'll use one of our previous words. Compare apples to apples, right? Instead of like an apple to a really old orange. Okay, turn to the next page and work on 18, 19, and 20 by yourself. You're going to decide, is it a survey, experiment, or observational study? And then you're going to explain your thinking. So why do you think it is what it is?
We can go over this together after.
Sure.
Wait, what, okay.
I was just thinking back at them.
Mhm.
What's it mean by imposed treatment? Like the definition for that?
So the treatment was what they did to the tennis balls, like where they soaked them and then they dried them out. So like, did they do anything to an object?
Okay, so they didn't really. Okay, so this is like a bad type of study, like.
I mean, no, it's
Or-
fine. It's just like, are you like, so if you wanted to know like which fertilizer worked better, that's a treatment you're going to do to different grass areas to see which one's going to make your grass grow better, right?
So would that one be this? Because it said but does not impose. So when it changing the fertilizer or whatever, when
That would be an experiment. So on the previous
Okay.
page, we talked about the experiment with the tennis balls.
Okay.
Sure. Okay, sounds sounds like you guys are finishing up. Let's talk about our answers. What'd you come up with for the study about boys and girls learning video games? I don't want to know your thoughts or opinions, but is it observational, experiment, or a survey? What do you think? Avery? Okay, why? Okay, was anything done to the boys or the girls to see if it made them faster? Or did they just sit down and play a game? So this is actually observational because nothing was actually done to give either one of them an advantage, right? It was just, here, do this, and they observed them. Okay, they picked random people, they played the same video game, right? There was no treatment actually given. If it was like, hey, here's some Mountain Dew to this group, and then here's a group that doesn't have Mountain Dew, who can learn it faster, maybe that affects it, right? I don't know. So that would actually be, this is just observational.
But what do you mean by no treatment?
So the treatment meaning like something to give an advantage or a disadvantage, right? Like with the tennis ball scenario, how they were soaking them and letting them dry versus just having tennis balls to see how far they could bounce, right? Like if I wanted to try to teach you guys how to help you guys to study better, and I said I'm going to randomly pick 5 kids in here to really help and teach study skills, and I'm going to pick 5 that I don't even talk to, like that's a treatment, right? It's giving some students information and some not, right? That would be treating you differently, so if something's treated differently. Okay, how about the statistics project? Hopefully you put survey. It's not random, because it's just this one kid's class, but it's still a survey. Okay, and so then the last one is an experiment, right? Because they use 2 different paints. That's the treatment.
We said like there's an independent variable.
I'm sorry?
We said it was an independent variable.
There's an independent variable, right? Only the paint changed. They picked 20 different parts of a road, okay, that would all have maybe the same weathering on it. Yes?
I'm just confused on the road part because how do we know if like the A part of it, the paint A spot is driven on more than part B?
So I think what they did is they picked like an A and a B maybe like really close to each other so they would have the same like,
on the same map.
yeah, or like the same part of a road like in the middle maybe just to see which, yeah, that's a good question. But like they said comparable, so I want to believe they chose wisely. Maybe? Yes.
I just don't get how like having 2 different, like I don't get how this one is an experiment because I feel like it's kind of like the first one, like how is there any like advantage or like disadvantage? Aren't they just like saying which one like would last longer? Aren't they just like observing that?
Yes, they are observing it. I mean, well, I mean that is a really good question. Let me talk to their math teachers because none of us have ever come up with that like perspective. But let me ask. I'm gonna write myself a note.
Because there's no like, it just seems like they're just observing it from last one. There's no like advantage or disadvantage. They're just getting like with the first one, they've got boys and girls and are seeing like who can do better, and they're just getting 2 different things.
Oh yeah, because like A would be more B.
That's a really good question. I'm going to get back to you on that one, Addison. I'll ask the other teachers their thoughts. Okay, that's the end of that packet. No.